here tonight in fellowship. We're really fortunate to have a very robust panel of heavyweights working across various industries, led by James Whitaker. So we're going to jump right into things. Thank you so much for being here tonight.
Thanks, Tara. And I appreciate everybody for coming out and spending some time with us tonight. I'm actually excited. It's a topic that we don't meaningfully talk about. I think everybody likes to think that we just all show up as Superman every day and do what we do. And I think there's a lot more to it. We all got to put our hard hat on and grind every day. And without having the right group of people around you, it makes the work a little more difficult to do. I won't prematurely get into the discussion without introducing everybody. Once again, my name is James Whitaker. I'm security, and I do security at free games. So if anybody gets out of line, then I kind of kick you out. So that's all I do. I'm the security guy. Ari, I'll let you go next because you're the next person I see on my screen. Or no, Scoop, you're the next person I see on my screen, please.
Now don't let me start running security. I'm gonna let you do your thing. I'm the wrong one to run security. I'm usually running from security, so that's not.
Oh no! I'm sorry. I meant I'll let you go next on the introduction, Scoop.
Oh, all right. I thought you were talking about like
No.
I thought you were passing responsibility over to me to run security. I'm like, no, I'm the wrong one, dude.
I take my security duties. I take them seriously, man. I'm head of security, man. I'm head of security.
All right. Yeah, I'm the one you got to worry about running out. So anyway, name is Scoop Jackson, writer, journalist, author, currently senior writer for ESPN and content writer for Nike and president of Strong Island Media Shot, agency I've had for 20-something years here in Chicago, Illinois.
Scoop, thank you for making time for us tonight, man. It's I didn't want to not give you the opening that you deserve. I really appreciate you taking the time to fellowship with us, and more importantly than that, I appreciate you taking the time to reach out and speak positive energy to me. And I just want you to know, man, your presence is greatly appreciated.
No, I appreciate it. And it's not even taking time, man. This is what we do. This is what we're supposed to do. So it's not time wasted. It's not time given. It's just, this is what we do. It's just an extension, man.
Thank you, brother. Ari, you the next person I see on my screen now. Go for it, bro.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Ari Langsdorff, 1/4 of the foundation, and happy to be here with y'all tonight.
Dre, you want to go next?
Sure. Dre Hayes, 2nd quarter of the foundation. Glad to be here. Share this with my brothers. It's always good combos.
Brother Hutch.
Antoine Freeman, 3rd quarter of the foundation, and I'm just here so I don't get fined.
Brother Pale.
I create stuff for the foundation.
And also we got my brother Jason Maiden. He's gonna be jumping on soon. And Jason's one of my favorite human beings. He's one of the only human beings that will hit me out of the clear blue and ask me, what is it that I'm stressing about right now, so he can pray for me. And when he first done it, I had to read the text message like, am I going through something that I don't know about? But I wasn't used to somebody meaningfully thinking about me that way unsolicited, and it showed me a level of selflessness and kindness that I wasn't used to experiencing. And J May is truly an incredible guy. Hope you guys get a chance to experience him, because he's much better than what I could ever describe in person. That makes sense. But Tara, I'll let you get us started from there.
So you've already kind of spoken about fellowship in the biblical sense, but I'm really curious, since we have so many people here who work in varying industries, how do you all individually define fellowship, and what does fellowship look like in your respective industries? Which I know is a bit of a loaded question, so take your time.
Well, I'll go first. I think think just staying on topic. It's the word I don't actually think about, and I honestly didn't think about it until speaking to Scoop, and we spoke, and it was another one of those conversations where I was like, man, God damn, I'm really in a good space to have strong people around me to help let me know that, like, yo, that we're doing the right thing. Because some days you wake up and I just wake up, boxing gloves on, mask on, and go fight. You know what I'm saying? You know, every day gonna be a fight. You know, regardless of what you got planned for the day, some shit's gonna show up that you just need to deal with. And it's not anyone else's responsibility to deal with it except ours. And I think all of us as leaders in our respective companies and spaces understand that the responsibility ultimately lies with us for so many things. So we're not looking to pass the buck, and we're looking to hold ourselves accountable at all time. But it's good to just know you got people who got your back, and that you can count on, and just share positive energy with you. And to the point that I made with because you know, the foundation boys, we've been doing this for forever. Sometimes Hutch would tell me, man, shut the fuck up and fight and hang up on me, right? But that's fellowship, right? That's my brother. That's fellowship, right? What Ari is gonna give me different than what Dre's gonna give me, and what Scoop's gonna give me different than J May's gonna give me. But it's all energy, and they all investing in me meaningfully, and know me, and they know how to push my buttons to make me move forward. If that makes sense.
Total sense. I guess I'll go there. I can say that to me, it's exactly what James was just speaking to, and it's to me it's really simple. Fellowship is just in our situation being there. And I'm very much like James said earlier before we even started this. I tend to simplify things, especially when they don't need to be complicated. And to define fellowship to me is just being there. Now, you can individually define what your own personal definition of being there means. But if you're there, and that means being there for somebody else, being there for yourself, being there for the craft or whatever it is that you're doing, being there for the legacy, being there for your contribution to whatever, society, culture, whatever, just being there and understanding that at most times, your being there is going to be connected to another human being. That to me is what fellowship is all about, because that's how we build. And look, I'll keep it simple. I've been married for 27 years. And people always ask me, what's the key to marriage? How do you do this? Like there's an answer. But to simplify it, it's like this. There's two things that you need, in my mind, to have a good marriage. You need to find the right person and be the right person. Now, if both people do that throughout the existence of the relationship, you're good. That's it. It's really simple. So that's why I simplify fellowship the same way. Just be there. Now, there's a lot of work that goes in being there. Like, you have to be there when James Whitaker calls. You have to be there when Ari Langford calls. You have to be there when some kid on the block who happened to see you and knows what you do, and you don't know them from, a spray paint can, comes up to you and is like, hey, Mr. Jackson, hey, Mr. Whitaker, woo-woo Skippy. Be there for that individual. Even people you don't know, you be there through your work so that people who read or watch or embrace or engage with what it is that you do, whatever your creativity is that you're putting out to the world, you be there for people who don't even get to know you, but you be there through your work. And that creates fellowship because they connect with you. And a big part of fellowship is the connection we have to one another. So if you're there in everything that you do through presence and product, if you're there, that to me is the definition of fellowship.
You said a couple things I want to hit on, but I don't want to hog the ball. And I want to key in on presence, man, because being present is something that you work on. And you said a lot. If you have kids, then I think you understand it more, because you have to be meaningfully present for your kids in a different way. So I think being present is something. If I don't want to hog the ball, so I'm gonna let Ari Dre Hutch jump in.
Well, I was actually, to go after what Scoop just said, that was pretty on point. But presence was actually what I was gonna say in the simplest term, and that's presence of being there. But it's you have to be present and be real when you're present, right? Because it takes commitment to be a part of a fellowship. You're a part of it, right? So if you're not present to do your part, then it's not going to work. So to me, it goes back to the presence being there. I agree with you, Scoop.
I want to add something. James, you kind of touched on it, but it takes a village to raise a child, right? And I think that very much so, fellowship is a communal think tank where we all come together and we're just building and we're bonding. But in what we do, fellowship is also like building off of an idea. Somebody has an idea and everybody else is pushing it. Even the conversation that we had before this about what do we do as a community, that was still fellowship. Right now, we are having fellowship. We're building off of one another's ideas, our conversations, and our communication.
I think what everyone said has valid points, but Scoop said something about the marriage piece that I find very interesting, because whenever people talk, and I've been with my wife for like 20 some odd years, it's how do you do it, right? Because your likes aren't always the same. You guys grow up and grow apart, and that's no different within your friendship network. But to me, it all boils down to two things, which is consistency and core values, right? So as long as your value system is the same, that's what breeds long-term relationships. James might like to go to basketball games, and my favorite sport might be football. And we might not like the same music or same taste in women or whatever it is, right? But it's that common core value system that we both want the same things out of life. We both treat people the same way. Amongst my partners and I couldn't say anything more true. And then the consistency, right? Being there for one another, being there for other people on a consistent basis. And whether you get it back or not, it shouldn't change your core values. And I think, to me, like, that's what lasts and creates good fellowship.
No, I think core values, and Scoop hit on something else too. And I don't know if he said the exact word. I just seen Chris Wright popping on the bottom of the screen, and one of his favorite words is accountability. When you were able to have core values, and you ever have a group of people around you who make you constantly accountable for yourself, your actions, your goals, and your responsibilities, that also is a way of making sure you stay focused. And I think the other thing is what we talked about earlier, that word hope. President Obama wrote a book, Audacity of Hope, and hope. We talked a lot about hopelessness before the call. We'll get into that. I don't want to hog the mic. Tara, I'm sure you got another one for us, but talking about just accountability and hope, those things is something you gotta keep, because you could easily go in a rut. We get so meaningfully beat up in our journeys, and you feel like a lot of times that, and I know there's a lot of young entrepreneurs on this platform, so you get so beat up by, you get so many no's, and I think sometimes people view us, because we have things going, that they think we don't need to fight no more. It's all wins. Like, yo, in order to get to every one win, man, it's probably like 150, 200 no's. So you gotta, when I say I gotta come out every day with the gloves on and ready to fight, it's not because like someone's attacking me. Well, they're attacking me too. I say that, right? I think it's a combination of the attack and understanding that you need to fight to get the yes. So you gotta dodge jabs, while you gotta dodge the attacks while trying to be on the offense to get your jabs in, while not losing hope at the same time, right? And for me, it's a balance of those things, because sometimes even when you're not getting hit, you can just get punch drunk, forget who you punching at, and you fall and get knocked out, and you never even get touched, just because you fighting too many people and you kind of lose focus on who you fighting and why. That's when that's when and why a lot of times fellowship is important for me as well.
And let me get first, Ari, I pronounced your last name wrong, man. I said Lane's first instead of Lane's store. So my bad, man.
It's like Madonna, man. Just call me Ari.
I
I don't even know why they got my last name up there.
But to what James is saying, I think you're dead on with that and being prepared for the fight. But I think part of fellowship is, as I was trying to say earlier, is that it's not always about knowing each other. Like the Black people, we happen to be a tangible people. Literally, a lot of times in order for us to grow and move forward, we have to be able to see things and touch them to know that they're real. If I know I'm in a fight, like James said, I'm coming out every day and I'm fighting. And I'm like, man, it doesn't seem like I'm going anywhere. That's when you have to look to find fellowship in people you don't know, but have gotten places where you haven't gone, and you use their work and what they're doing as that fellowship. Like Spike Lee is a great example. If I'm trying to do what I'm doing and I'm like, I can't take this anymore because these beat downs and these no's, because we all know the further you get along and the further forward or upward you move, the more no's you are going to hear. Especially if you have any type of color on your skin, if you are of the non-male gender, if you are not from this country originally, you know, if your religion isn't correct, whatever you are that makes you the minority in this piece, the further you go and the further up you move, you're going to hear no more often. And sometimes that direct connection to have fellowship is not there. And that's why you need to look at somebody else who is either on the path that you are on, but slightly ahead of you, or has already carved out that path that you are trying to follow, because their fellowship through their work is what's going to get you off of your ass to continue moving, because you will say, if that person did it, then I have the chance to do it. And without them saying a word to you, their work becomes your fellowship.
Well said, brother. Because I read a book years ago, and it talked about, I think we've all heard, you know, if you hang around, your mom probably said to you, you hang around them, you're gonna be just like them, right? You hang around 7 bad people, you gonna end up, you hang around seven great people, you end up the 7th. But I agree with you completely that you can have mentorship through distance, and you can set a bar for yourself by looking at other people's work, especially with platforms that exist now. You can connect with people digitally and socially, and curate your Instagram feed to get the information and see the things that you want to see. And I do believe in manifestation and energy, right? And if you put the right kind of energy around yourself, then that's what you're gonna get out of. Obviously, there's still gonna be hurdles, and there's tactic and skill. You can't luck and will and energy yourself into a lottery ticket. That don't exist, right? But I do believe everything that Scoop just said.
Yeah, Scoop, you made a lot of really great points that sort of built off of something that Ari brought up about fellowship being about shared values, which I think is important. But I'm curious, can it be more than just shared values? And is it possible to build fellowship with people who simply don't share your values? Which I think is important, because in this climate, we don't all agree with each other.
I don't think agreeing and a value system are the same thing, right? That's my point. James and I can disagree, or Dre and I, or Antoine and I, or Daniel and I, or we can disagree about everything, right? What's a good design? What's a bad? What's a good brand? And what's a bad? But to me, a value system is more of how you treat people, how you want to be treated, what your goals are, and how you attain them. I don't think it has anything to do with agreeing with one another. To me, value system is deeper than that. That's why you can be completely different people. But as long as those values are the same, you can support one another.
Go ahead, Drake.
Because it comes down, what he's saying about the values is spot on, because, you know, how can you have fellowship with somebody and, you know, you can work, it could be a one-sided thing where you're overexerting yourself to do it. But if the person doesn't share the same values, and it makes me think of I think about this brand that we were going to get involved with, and the guy who owned it, we didn't share the same values, so we ultimately couldn't become partners. Now, and when I think back, just listening to this talk, we couldn't form the fellowship that we needed in order to move forward. And it's, and this just made me think about this conversation right now. And it goes back to the values for sure.
Well, and I'll even challenge that for the sake of challenging it right now. I was in some place I'll let be nameless, right? And I was sitting at the bar, right? And because I was in the place, you know this, Dre, you tall, so you go through it. Pale, you too. Chris, I'm sure you as well.
All right. Hey, making it personal now. Slow down now.
So they assume that I've caught a ball or shot one in my lifetime, right? So older white gentleman proceeds to start a conversation by leading with, I think I was talking to the person I was with about my flight the next day, and they asked, where you headed to? I say where I'm headed to. They was like, oh, if you was headed my way, I'd offer you a ride in my jet. And I know, that's bait that's conversation bait, right? And the conversation bait, I take the conversation bait because I just want to joust. I'm 2 drinks in, and I now want to see with this dude, why this dude want to go toe to toe with me and whatever he want to say. And I'm gonna make this part of the conversation go in a place that may make some of y'all uncomfortable because it got extremely political, right? So we get into the conversation, and at the top of the conversation, he worked for the first 10 to 15 minutes to find similarities between us after he realized I didn't catch or shoot a ball. And then for the second set of 15 minutes, he talked to me a lot about Republican core values. And what I said to him was, I don't think Republicans and Democrats have different value systems. I think it's around humanity and what humans want, right? Because in this case, I was about to start saying what he said. Then I looked down at this thing and said, like, I can't do that. I ain't gonna even get into it. I ain't gonna get into that part. But where we end up at was that if you look down on any group of people for any reason, rich, poor, other, right? We can't meaningfully do business together. But I did find myself at least for a second, asking myself, am I supposed to get this dude's number and leverage him for something because his thinking can help us in some way, but I couldn't get past the ickiness that I felt about the value, right? Because in the thing that I was trying to say earlier is like, yo, are we supposed to work with people who are, Lil Wayne and Trump? Wayne puts out, let's go vote for Trump because whatever, right? And if anybody voted for Trump, I ain't got nothing against you, but fuck Trump, right? For me, I get it. He needed to pardon, so he didn't go to prison, and he leveraged his platform so he can get a pardon. And then you look at some others who done it. I think there's a value in having conversation with people who you don't share values with, because in having those conversations, you got to be able to solve for something that's more meaningful. I know I said a big circle that didn't all make sense, but I guess what I'm trying to say is we got to figure out a way to have conversations and fellowship with people who we don't necessarily share values with, because if not, we're going to continue to live in this polarized society that we do, where the right and left can't meaningfully get anything done because you look at the other side like they're just a piece of shit. Does that make sense?
It makes total sense, but the bottom line is that if you don't have to have shared values. Well, you cannot have shared values, but you have to have some level of respect in the center of that. And I can fellowship, I think we all can fellowship with anybody. And I think anybody can fellowship with anybody, even if your values aren't shared. But if that person doesn't have any respect for you, or respect for the fact that you have a different set of core values than they do, then there will be no fellowship.
But having
At all.
respect
You
for
have-
other people is a core value, right?
Right, right.
Good
But you
call,
have
Ari.
but you have to be willing to respect that other person and respect what they have to say and what they have to bring to the table. You have to do the same thing. The core values can still be different, but at some point, I think in order to be heard, not necessarily appreciated, but in order to be heard in fellowship, you have to respect where that message is coming from. And a lot of times where you see people that have different core values, especially in the political landscape that you just talked about, James, the respect is not there. So whereas Democrats and Republicans may be fundamentally different, it's who has the level of respect for the other person to even listen to them, to create a fellowship. Because if you're coming out the block, you're like, I don't respect anything you stand for, anything, then there never will be fellowship. And that's just on the political front. But I could go, you mentioned Lil Wayne, like, okay, I'll throw this up because I was doing something earlier today, so it's in my mind. Like, and I hope this doesn't offend anybody, especially anybody from Chicago. But like, I'm not the biggest fan of Chief Keef. All right, and not because I don't connect to his music. You know, and I'm like the 50-year-old guy who doesn't feel what's going on, and I want to, like, you know, yo, you should be KRS-One. It's not that. It's the fact that I have a problem with the impact his music is having on the community in which I live in. There's a fundamental core difference in how we approach Black life and how we approach Black art. Now, our core values may be different, and it's only known through the art that we give out to the world. Those are two different core values. Now, am I willing to sit down and fellowship with Chief Keef on anything? If he's willing to hear, hey man, you know what? I don't give a fuck about you, but I will listen to what you have to say because I respect you. Then we can fellowship.
Well,
you get what I'm saying? So it could be two totally different things, but if the respect is there, then we can at least build a fellowship where at least somebody can take the time to hear you just out of respect. But if that's not there, and that's where I think the core is, and Ari was exactly right, there has to be some fundamental core value there, but I think just as, if not more important, there has to be a level of respect. And to what Tyra was saying is that we're living in a place right now in this country that is so polarizing. It's more than just a core value. There's just a bottom line lack of human respect that stops any type of fellowship from happening from one side to the other.
Yeah, and I've been in a place in my life because we went in this, even getting back into the conversation around hopelessness, right? And the music, because when you start to think about some of that, like, what I was going to say is you can have meaningful conversation, I think, with people that you absolutely hate, because you got to get, at some point, you got to get to a place where you could at least not want to be destructive towards one another, right? And you see it now through peace treaties when you know we got the Russian-Ukraine situation going on right now. But I've been in some tight spaces in my lifetime before, and sometimes you got to get to a place where you can have a meaningful conversation just to save human lives. So I understand what you're saying about the Chief Keef scenario, but I think, to your point, until we can start having, you got to get to a point where somebody's willing to step in and start to mend some of the bridges to create some level of communication that can happen, that can get the core human, like, without communication, you can't even fellowship. There's not.
But I guess not to keep this too political, but the problem with the political system and the way it's set up is it's a lot of bullshit. So it's hard to have fellowship when the conversations aren't necessarily real. So it's, some of the things that people say they believe in, they don't even believe in. So then they're trying to have a conversation, and you can't have a real conversation unless we're all being honest.
You can't fellowship with a fuckboy. Let's say it more clearly, right? Like there is no if it ain't two men having a real conversation about substance, then we ain't having a conversation. And that goes back to my conversation, because here we go again. I'm about to go on one. When you're going on a conversation, when you're having a conversation with somebody who's looking to fuck you coming into the conversation, it's not really a conversation. Now I got my gloves on, and now I'm slowly getting my hand on my pistol and ready to cock it because I know what time it is, right? And that's when we gotta. That's why we gotta live on. That's why we gotta live on defense, right? You kind of like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I see the bullshit coming, right? And people want to disguise. Some people want to disguise bullshit as fellowship, right? And that doesn't help. That doesn't help us in any arena, right? So to your point about politics, 3/4 of politics is bullshit. 3/4 of politics is agenda. 1/4 of it is people trying to get an agenda until they get caught into the bullshit, right? So it's a balance of a couple things. And Tara, we about to try to solve the political system. So I'll let you bring us in and operate within the guardrails. So.
This was great. Thank you all so much for speaking to the idea of core values and respect and how they impact fellowship, because I think when we have these conversations about what we're trying to build and cultivate, it's also important to speak to those challenges. James, you keep going back to the idea of hopelessness, and I took notes during you and Scoop's earlier conversation about this being a very real and a very valid sentiment within our communities, especially now with the current political climate. There's such a feeling of hopelessness in general. So how does fellowship combat feelings of hopelessness? How can we build when we're clearly being impacted so negatively by so many external things that are happening?
I mean, listen, I didn't say it. For me, I got an ironic call. Well, there was irony in the fact that I got a call right before free game, and it was a cousin of mine's. And like, yo, without each other, for me, it starts with my we all got day ones, right? Everything starts with your day ones. And as a community, we just don't have the opportunity. So without opportunity, there is no hope, right? So I think where me and Scoop was going, so everybody just got a little bit of visibility into the conversation. We were having a conversation about solving hopelessness for our community, and saying that we were talking about Chicago and how we can meaningfully start to see some change. And we start talking about big solution. And I'll let Scoop get into it a little bit, because the way he served it up, I don't think I'll be able to. He started talking about the idea of hopelessness. And until we can solve hopelessness in our community, it's tough for fellowship to, I mean, obviously it's going to help pick you up, but without opportunity, for me, without opportunity, fellowship just makes you push forward. But if there's nowhere for you to push to, you still on a hamster wheel on your way to nowhere. Does that make sense? And Tara, I don't know if that's where you want me to go, but that's kind of where I went. Scoop, I'll let you bail me out a little bit.
Oh, no. No, but I was the thing I was like stressing with you in our hopelessness conversation. I think the hopelessness that we spoke about in Chicago was a little different than what Tara brought on for the platform to speak on. I was specifically speaking, not from a political standpoint, but just from a systemic standpoint of how this city functions as far as life and death and just existence, as far as Black people on the South Side and the West Side has been and will always continue to be. And I think the core of what I said, and I'll continue to say, is hopelessness in Chicago, just specifically, is not necessarily a situation. It is a disease. And what I didn't further say is like, until, because I wasn't looking for solution, I'm just looking for change. I think solution is such a big picture thing, and I just take change incrementally until, 4 or 5 generations from now, we possibly
that's it.
Yeah, we could possibly get to a solution. And James, as you and I have had this conversation before, a lot of things we need to set in place. We're not going to be around and live long enough to see, but we do have to start these things. But until hopelessness in this city gets looked at as a disease, the same way gambling is looked at as a disease, the same way alcoholism is looked at as the disease, the same way, cancer is looked at, well, not really cancer, but anything else is treated and looked at as a disease. I think hopelessness in Chicago is at that point that it needs to be looked at universally as a disease. And just as people fight to find cures for other diseases, that same type of fight needs to be put up to start to change. Like I said, we haven't cured cancer. We haven't cured alcoholism. We haven't cured gambling. We haven't cured infidelity. We haven't cured, domestic violence. There's all types of diseases that we have not cured, but we're still working as human beings to try to change them, to lessen their impact on society. And until hopelessness is looked at as that same kind of disease, there's not going to be a shift in it in Chicago. And until there's a shift in that, then everything's going to be the same, because this has been going on at this level, at a lesser level now than what it used to be, for long over 100 years. And like I said before, we need to get our hands dirty. Now, wait, to Tara's question, I think that looking at the landscape now and what you said, with all this going on, how are we going to deal with, not as a country, not Chicago? I think Chicago is a unique situation as a country to deal with the hopelessness. And James, you heard me say this before. We had this on a conversation last week, especially as Black people. And Ari, I'm throwing you in here too. I ain't giving you the black card right now, but I'm bringing in the Jewish brethren in here too.
We just met, Scoop. Give yourself another couple days, man.
It's good. It's good. No, because I think the Jewish minority is included in this, and I want to include, from a gender perspective, women in what I'm about to say, because I think in different pillars we all have a tendency to feel and gravitate towards some element of hopelessness in this country. We need to tap into our own history and stop speaking about it and recognizing what we've gone through that got us here, and realizing that the shit that we are dealing with now that makes us feel hopeless is nothing compared to what our people have already gone through to get us here.
Right, yes.
So if we as a people survive that, this is nothing. There's no reason for us to feel hopeless. Now, we may be fatigued and tired because we're going through generations and generations and generations of having to fight and work, but there's not hopelessness. You know what I'm saying? Surviving slavery, surviving a Holocaust, surviving the inaccuracies and injustice of being a woman in this country and what they had to fight to get us to the stage so we can even be on screen together, talking to one another. Shit, that's hope right there. So as long as we can tap into what our people have been through and what they've had to fight through, and that we're all still standing, living, that's how we eliminate hopelessness for all of us in this country. To realize that, yo, the stuff I'm feeling pressed about is nothing compared to what my grandmother, my grandmother's grandmother, and we're still standing in the, with all that pressed up against us. Now, it's a hard thing to remind ourselves that, but we have to remind ourselves that, because that is the only place we're gonna be able to pull our strength from.
But Scoop,
hopelessness.
One thing I'll go in, and I agree with you completely, right? But the juxtaposition is this. Growing up, and I'm going to zoom in for the kids in Chicago, then I'll zoom out for kids in Pittsburgh, Harlem, LA, wherever you at, right? When you ain't got shit, that's all you feel, right? Like when you 10, 11 years old and you motherfucking living in a motherfucking homeless shelter, or you open your refrigerator and your motherfucking ain't no food, and on food stamp day, your mom took all the money and went and got high with it and left the fucking refrigerator empty and ain't no signs of help nowhere, right? Ain't nobody thinking about Harriet Tubman and Underground Railroad. They think about their stomach and they fucking ribs touching and how they gonna make ends meet and how they gonna meaningfully figure out their life. Yo, it's a bunch of depression that happens. I had to talk to one of my youngins whose father passed, and another youngin, his cousin, and his father's still around, but went through what he went through, and he asked like, "Yo, why ain't my dad? You and my dad are so cool. Why ain't y'all in the same place?" I said, "Man, you couldn't believe what it is that we all had to go through to get to where we are, right? And our personal circumstances are the only things, it's our hell, right? And when you're in hell, it's tough for you to empathize with someone else's hell because you're so busy being in hell and trying to work to get out of it that that's all you can see, right? And I think you're right about us all being together, right? And this is fellowship for us. But what I'm always, and I think the conversation we was having before is when I was talking about trying to save the youngins in Chicago, and I feel like if we could find, and I'm gonna use your word, if we can you correct me. You said it's not about solutions, it's about what?
Incremental changes.
Change, right?
Yes, change.
Trying to find some level of change in what it is that we have going on. We got to start solving for some of that with some level of opportunity, right? Because without opportunity and meaningful opportunity, right, it's tough for somebody to even want a fellowship, right? Sometimes I have to tell myself meaningfully as an adult, I can look for solutions. But when I'm talking to some young people, they can't be positive because they just don't know positive. That's why hopelessness exists. It's hopelessness, and somebody can Google hopelessness and drop in the chat what it actually means. But hopelessness is trying to meaningfully find a way forward, and you keep running into a brick fucking wall, and everybody around you is running into it as well. Right?
I got it, but James, you know as well as that, how many brothers and sisters do you know that have survived hopelessness? As a person who may be going through hopelessness now, you got to tap into like, how did that motherfucker make it out? It ain't like everybody that has done anything and survived and lived to the age of 50 got there with some fucking silver spoon.
Well, but
and you don't have to know those people. You have to find another carrot outside of your circumstance.
I agree. Scoop, I agree with you. But just for the sake of conversation, right? I agree with you wholeheartedly. We got 40 million Black folks in this country, right? 40 million.
Yeah.
Let's say what? 70% of those Black folks live in poverty.
Yes.
Think about that.
Yeah.
So what we saying is 70% of the total Black folks in this country, you can't have that number this big unless you got some level of hopelessness.
I get that.
In the most part, we got to remember, we live in privilege to be able to bust out and have a mindset to say, man, fuck that. I'm gonna do better. Fuck that. I'm gonna get out of this rut. Fuck that. I'm gonna climb out of this hole, right? And everything you're saying are the tools that it takes to get out of this hole. But and maybe we need to have a whole session on hopelessness, right? Because we're going more there than we are here, right?
Fellowship.
Yeah, we going more there than we are here. But I think most importantly is first the acknowledgement of why we are where we are. And you're right. We can't think about it. We can't solve this problem by saying y'all brought us over here on a boat. But fuck it, y'all brought us over here on a boat, right?
That's true.
Let's not erase that fact, right? And you continue to beat us the fuck up now that y'all let us go and you don't want to meaningfully help us. Now check, cool. Now that I got that out my system, we got to do what you said after that. I just don't want to miss that there's a young person on this call that ain't talking right now that's really probably going through some shit and meaningfully trying to fight out the hole. And because they're on this call, they have hope. but most of the
Right.
people around them making it to this call, making it to this free game session means you're on the path to get there. Means if you consistently show up here, you're going to get the fellowship that you need to break out the rut, and you're going to be a gem and a light for somebody else. But I'm going to take a full circle. Without the fellowship, I'm just a nigga in Pittsburgh with a pistol.
True. That's fact. But here's the, I mean, and I
I'm
don't
out,
want to
though.
there you go.
Hold
Ari.
Hold up.
Okay, go ahead. Go, Ari, go.
Go ahead, Drew. Go ahead.
I can't say that, James. And the reason, you know, fellowship and surrounding ourselves with people that can help us advance forward is great. But sometimes you have something in you that wants you to advance, because you know, you came from a place of hopelessness, right? But it wasn't just the fellowship. You got up and you moved forward on your own before you even got the fellowship around you, right? You said, I need to change my situation. Now, and I'm not going to say that hopelessness doesn't create some despair and make it harder for people, but people still got to get up and decide they want something different.
100. Hold on. Keep in mind, I know who I am, and I get why I'm here, right? But the thing that I've been focused on a lot in the last year is having empathy for the folks around us who haven't had the opportunity to live in our space or live in our privilege, right? Because, like, yo, listen, I'm not often in awe of the people around me, but the session's about fellowship, right? So for me, the four of y'all, Scoop, Chris, Hutch, tons of other people, meaningfully at different times of a year or a couple years, reach out just to check. Like, yo, you good? They don't want nothing. They just making sure you good, you solid, you all right? But we're in a place now where we got that, bro. You're right. In Pittsburgh, I had to make it out. Kids got to make it out on their own. But like, I'm thinking about the fact that there's 70% of 40 million who haven't meaningfully made it out on their own. So we got to start thinking about some of this big solution differently, because yes, we're all anomalies because we figured it out, but the other 70% is not. So something else, there's something else that we need to meaningfully solve for, right? And check.
All right.
I'm as motivation and ambitious, whatever the word is that they get, but there has to be some other solution for that 70%.
My thing is asking this, and I agree with you, Jay, but I'm thinking, has that number changed over the last 100 years?
Yes, we know it has. In the 60s, we had this conversation. The 1968, baby, the best year for Black Americans. We've ebbed and flowed as a culture, right? We've ebbed and flowed. We've had meaningful moments.
Okay, that's the reason I asked. But now I'm trying to bring it full circle with you. So we know when we came over here, or when we were brought over here, that 70% was closer to what?
When we got here,
100%.
Right. 100. Okay. So,
99.9.
Right. Okay. So my point is, what did we do to get that from 99.9 to the number it was? And I don't know what the number was. Was it 50? Was it 40? What was our poverty rate in 1968? And what did we do to get from 99 to that? But how did it get back to 70? We need to tap back into, like you said, when it's a lot to ask somebody whose stomach is hungry, who can't see past their current situation, to get out of that hopelessness. But as I said before, it has been done before. What the hell did we do to get from 99% to 40%?
Well, it goes back to what you said about Chief Keef, and I didn't want to get into outside influence, right? And we talked a little bit. Don't pick on me, nobody, and don't cancel me about what I'm about to say, but I'm gonna say it anyway. We talked about Jewish folks and what they've meaningfully done about locking and tightening community up. and Ari jumped in and said, the one thing that Ari, I'll let you say it so I don't misquote.
Wealth gave them power, right? Wealth gave Jews power. Land, film, bank.
And the one thing Jewish folks didn't have, Jewish folks came here with confidence, right? And they came here with a meaningful plan. And you're right, Scoop. So I agree with you. The reason I asked that question is because as a group, we need to start to invoke a little bit of confidence and work collectively to get a meaningful plan. And platforms like this is allowing us to do that. But for me, and you remember in our conversation, you know what my biggest problem is? I want it all, baby. I want the whole 40 million. I want every last one of us to get the same fucking opportunity I got. That's my problem. I can't see, fuck incremental change. I ain't looking for incremental change. I want the whole fucking pot, all of it, right? So I spend so much time thinking about the 70%, right? And then like, listen, remember our conversation, Scoop? You told me, bro, you doing what you're supposed to be doing. And I said, damn, I needed to hear that, right?
Right.
And I got right back off the phone with you, I thought, and then I was thinking to myself again, what we gonna do about that 70%, right? So in this conversation, I don't want anybody to think like James is going negative on us. That's not happening, right? It's just that I'm trying to find meaningful solution to get the 70%, the same level of fellowship that I'm able to receive as a 43-year-old, what people would perceive as I hate using the word success, a 43-year-old with meaningful opportunities.
Gentlemen, this is such impactful dialogue. I'm not even trying to flatter y'all when I say I could listen to you talk all evening, but I want to be cognizant of everyone's time and give everyone opportunities to bring their questions to the chat and give everybody on the panel, Pell, Antoine, I feel like y'all haven't gotten the opportunity to talk as much. So I'll direct some of these questions to you guys.
And Terry, you can feel free to let people come on live if you want. We went and Scoop, how are you for time? Ari, Dre, how's everybody for time?
I'm
fine.
I'm good too, because I was blabbing my mouth. And listen, everybody, Terry, before we ask the question, I tried something new today. I wanted to stir the pot. Like my goal was, because we have Scoop and I understand the kind of thinker he is. And we have everybody on the panel. So my goal was, I know we agree on a lot of things. So my goal was to take the position of the 70%. My goal was to take the position of myself as a 14-year-old. My goal was, if only for 10 minutes, to live in a piece of hopelessness and the person who don't feel like they have a real shot or a change, and think from that position and not my current space, right? Because only in that can we have some empathy for somebody that's there and help them understand how to get out of that space. And Scoop, you did an amazing job of doing exactly what you do. Dre, you as well, Ari, you as well. Hutch and Pale went to lunch on us, but I'm sure they're gonna come back now when we get through some of these questions. Go ahead, Tara.
Our first one, hopefully I went back far enough. Unfazed. When should someone move on from trying to create fellowship with individuals that you know have the same interests as you, but you're not getting the traction that you're looking for? So this is a question about the challenges of creating fellowship and when to quit.
Never. I'll let somebody else go after that. Never.
Yeah, this is Pell. I don't think that you ever quit. If you quit, you know you're gonna get an absolute zero. And even to bring it a little bit back to what the conversation I was said before, Scoop, you said something that, and it resonated, and you said it before also, like, this is a disease. One of the first things in his 12-step program, and no, I wasn't in one, was you have to admit that there's a problem. So collectively, we have to admit that there's a problem. And I don't think that we are. I think when some people are in hell, you're not doing that. So you're not looking for any help. You're trying to figure it out on yourself.
Yeah,
so
that's true.
you have to continue to try to reach out. These dudes will tell you straight up. I'll be hitting them up and I'll be reaching out on whatever. Sometimes they probably get tired of me calling. I still call them.
You
And
don't
that's
call
what
it.
it is.
You can call me in months.
Is the question on moving on?
I text you.
Is the question on moving on specific to like an individual you're not getting anywhere with? Or does it mean in
Yes, the way
totality
it's-
fellowship?
The way it's phrased, it seems like a situation with an individual.
So everyone's not there to help your support system. And that's just the reality of life, right? People that you may invest in or believe are there to support you and build with. Sometimes it just doesn't align and you got to move on and seek out people that you do align with and can build with. So to me, only an individual can tell you the point of when it's time to move on and seek out different surroundings or a different support network. But there does come a point where like a relationship is a two-way street. And when you're not getting what you need at a certain point, you got to move on.
Go ahead, Scoop. I'm anticipating what I think.
Oh no, I was about to say I agree. I think we need to go back to what Dre said earlier about dealing with bullshit. There's that old corny saying, but it's true. You can't help anybody that doesn't want to help themselves. And at some point, if somebody reached out to you for fellowship, but over the course of you trying to develop that, you realize that they really don't want to help themselves, that they're just for you, they're just coming to you on that bullshit that Dre was talking about, then I think comes a time you need to make a decision. Do I keep trying to fight and force this fellowship on somebody, or do I take this energy and give it to someone else or other individuals? Once you start losing that energy that is spent on someone that doesn't necessarily want true fellowship from you, then you're costing fellowship you can be given to someone else. And that's when I think you need to cut.
Yeah, that's Dre. Let me let you go. You didn't say anything yet on this.
No. I'm listening. I didn't have anything to say quite yet.
No, I think it's interesting because in this age of, I'm about to pick on the generation below me, in this age of entitlement, right? It gets interesting because there's an expectation that you're supposed to get exactly what you need. But I actually love the entitlement because at least you're ballsy enough to ask for what you need exactly the way you need it. So that's why I said, don't quit. But I think it goes back to with I think Scoop and Dre and Ari said earlier in the conversation, you don't have to communicate with the people. You can see people make their lives meaningfully available for you on one of 50 million platforms, right? And people, shoot, we got free games recorded now for probably 3 years, if that makes sense. So there's meaningful information out there for you to get. And it's about sometimes it's about your ego needing to have a one-to-one relationship and less about the information. Always stay focused on the information and less on the person. The information is the unlock in the connection, right? That you do need a human element, right? I'm not saying you don't need a human element, but sometimes you got to understand that Ari's point, right? Like, yo, it's not everyone's responsibility to show up for you, but you have to take the information and show up for yourself, right? And Dre, I know that's where you was going earlier today when we was talking about what I was talking about. But again, I was trying to be on the other side of the conversation today. So it wasn't as like, everybody kumbaya. Go ahead, Tara.
Yo, James, it ain't nobody's responsibility to show up for you. Nobody owes you anything.
Well said, brother.
It's up to you. Like, and we're in an age right now where information's out there for free.
Yes.
It's not like before where you had to, like, I got a whole library. I don't read no books. And I tell people that proudly. I don't read no books. I'm on audiobook all the time and I'm on mad tutorials. If I can't get the information from an individual off of a call, I'm gonna go look it up. And that's what it is. It's there waiting for you. And you could build. And there's a bunch of people all over the place that are in the same position with you. You just gotta look to the left of you, to the right of you, and sometimes you may have to turn back. But there are people out there that are willing to help, but they still don't owe you. You owe yourself. Well
said, brother. Well, and I'll say it again, and keeping the acknowledgement of what we said earlier. In being hopeless, sometimes you don't understand the requirements of owing yourself because no one ever gives you a meaningful opportunity of even surviving, right? So you don't know what it is that you owe to yourself. And I want to continue to keep acknowledging that. And I'm going to be a lot more intentional in acknowledging that, because we got to solve for the 70. Go ahead, Tara.
Hey, from Stephen, can you name an example or an instance when the crabs in a bucket mentality affected fellowship, and what lesson did you learn from it? These are heavy questions.
Whoa, I need you to say that again. That was that I got unpacked that in pieces. Go for one more time, Carol. I'm sorry.
So an example of an instance when the crabs in a bucket mentality affected fellowship and the lesson you took away from it. And that's from Stephen. Thanks for that, Stephen.
Every day. I'll go in there every day. Every day, there's someone who should be showing up, helping, is trying to pull you down. Every day, there's someone who you thought was doing better than you, a mentor for you, or someone you looked up to who realizes and sees you coming, and you look at them as someone to help you, and they look at you as competition, and they try to pull you down. That's every day. But you got to keep fighting anyway. We started the conversation with that, right? Remember when we start talking about you got to fight meaningfully fight every day. Crabs in a barrel it's something else that I'm trying to shift my thought process on. It's a power construct in this country, and not in this country. It's a power construct in this world that pits people against one another and makes us believe that there's a finite amount of everything, so we all got to fight to get it. That's the fucking dumbest thinking in the world. It's infinite opportunities out here for all of us to win. What you think I'm trying to solve for the whole 100 for? All 40 million black folks plus all 500 million white folks can all live in fucking happy harmony if you would just stop looking at what the next motherfucker got and focus on what you need. We all want something different. We all don't want the same thing. We all want different things, right? And even if we want the same thing, so what? There's enough of it to go around. That's a human issue. Like a crab in a barrel shit drives me insane because it's a human fucked up construct that I know how it came up, but that's a whole nother free game session, right? But we got to get over the idea that you can't be infatuated about what somebody want to do to you, right? Especially when you're on this platform. Once you've made it to this platform and you get to a space where you can ask that question in this, and I understand it's important for you to hear this answer, at least for me. I'm hogging the ball right now. I'm going Kobe in the fourth, not MJ. I'm not passing the rock right now. This is purely about you understanding what Pale said. This is on you now, right? It's on you to continue to get the information. It's on you to keep nagging the shit out of people. It's on you to go get skilled. It's on you to watch the tutorial. It's on you to do all those things to make yourself better, because it's out here. If you made it here, then you can make it anywhere. Fellas, I hogged the ball a bit. I missed the shot I might have, so somebody grab the rebound and see if you can get us a bucket.
Look, I'll try to make this as quick as possible. And where James went wide, I'll go micro on this and answering this question and get real specific, which is something I really don't deal with, but the question linked itself, and I think it would help the person who asked the question in another way than what they could get from what James basically said. And I'll deal with a direct situation that even I had to go through. You all might be familiar with the journalist by the name of Jason Whitlock.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Crabs in the Barrel Theory, we were both at ESPN. Now, I came to ESPN 4.5 years after Whitlock had already been there. But they brought me in, and 6 months into my being there, gave me a spot that he had been pining for. This is where the Crabs and the Barrels came in. And there was a public, I don't want to say feud because it didn't really go two ways. There was a public disharmony between Jason Whitlock and I. And, you know, the one thing you don't want white folks to see is two brothers fighting in the public, fighting for that one thing. But the Crab in the Barrel situation arrived when ESPN gave me the spot that Jason Whitlock felt that he had deserved. and it been there longer than I had to get. So the crabs in the barrel thing came when he did everything privately and publicly to pull me down. Basically, and he's still been going at it since this day, and he's been far removed. There wasn't a fellowship there where there should have been, because in the industry that I am, we are the minority of minorities. The minorities of minorities. There's only a few other industries in this world that has less Black participation and contribution than the media. We represent less than 3% totally. So at no point should we, as brothers and sisters, but as Black people, go after one another, privately trying to pull ourselves, trying to pull someone else down, and publicly doing the exact same thing. So how did it affect fellowship? It affected it greatly. Unfortunately, there's nothing of redeeming value I have to say about or to Brother Whitlock, and I'm pretty sure the same way goes on the other end. But I'm not the crab that tried to pull him down. So my way of handling it is acknowledge through the words of Chuck D and live with that as biblical. Every brother ain't a brother. And once we get to that point, we understand that sometimes there won't be fellowship, even when it's necessary. So you, whoever asked that question, can look at me as a living example of someone who personally dealt with on a public stage, on a big platform called ESPN, with a public and private battle of crabs in the barrel. And here's the thing. I didn't let the crab pull me down, and the crab that was trying to pull me down, he's still standing on his own. So you try to rise above it, and you try not to let it affect you, and use my situation as an example that you don't have to be a crab to jump down in the barrel and fight the other crabs to try to get back to the top. You just recognize what you're dealing with and do your best to keep it moving and not let it affect you, but never stoop to another person's level.
I want to jump in with a question from one of the ladies in the audience, Miss Danielle.
Hold on one second.
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, quick one for you. Follow up on that story. Firstly, thank you for sharing that. I wasn't even aware of that story, so I think it's good for this audience to hear something that happened at the level and magnitude that your situation happened in your workplace. Question for you is, how did you guys deal with that from an accountability standpoint in private, not public, but in private?
We never, he refused to have a conversation about it. First off, it was during the time when Stephen A. Smith was doing his first show, Quite Frankly. And he tried to moderate the situation publicly, where he invited me on the show and invited Jason on the show, and Jason refused to come on. Because technically, from what I understand, he doesn't respect either one of us. So he was not gonna come on that platform. He went on for a long time about this, and he publicly took many shots at him. I took one shot back at him in the form of a column and a story I wrote for ESPN, and after that, it was done. I called him personally, and when he didn't pick up the phone, I literally said, "Keep my motherfucking name out your mouth." And that was it. Now, I haven't stopped him from keeping my name out his mouth, but he's been, it's I almost feel sorry for him because of what he's let me, and I should have no effect on him, the role I played in his career. And I, to a degree, I still have respect for the brother. I try not to take it personal, but there has been and there will never be any interaction between us. And I only say that because of this. It's not necessarily his dislike and his public crabism is the word I'll use to try to take me down. It's just that one of the things that he said he just went too far. And he called members of my family, well, he really called my whole family parolees. And, you know, if you got a personal beef with me, that's one thing. But when you start calling my family members out of their name, you know what I'm saying? That there's nothing for me to, there's no bread breaking. You get what I'm saying?
Thank you
Yeah,
so much for this.
Yeah. Now, look, if Minister Farrakhan comes in, like, I got to get you two brothers together, you know, I may listen.
Yeah,
Gentlemen, we are well past 8 o'clock. Again, I want to be cognizant of everyone's time. I'm going to dial it back to Ms. Danielle's question. This is more of a branding question, so I'm curious to know Ari's thoughts in particular, because he did sort of bring this up earlier. When you're in a situation where brands have an individual representing them, but the brand's core values do not align with the person representing them, how do you handle that? And this is Danielle is presenting herself as a rookie that respects, or rather values respect and authenticity. She'd like to know how you navigate with that.
What context? Like from a consumer lens?
Danielle, are you here? Do you want to speak to that? I don't want to just assume based on how the question is phrased. Oh, okay. She's not available via video. So let's say from a consumer perspective.
Me personally, I don't support brands and products and companies that I don't want to. So I'm in control of my destiny with my money and how I spend it. So if something's not representing how I envision it should be represented, then I can't support it. And sometimes it's that cut and dry. The way the question was phrased was from a rep. It was almost like from a buyer standpoint, right? Like, what if a clothing brand rep doesn't represent the values of the brand? And to me, same thing. I choose how I utilize my capital and who I support. And if I was a retailer, what brands I put in my store and choose to promote. So to me, that's, you know, I'm in control of where I spend that and how I utilize it.
Tara, I want to say one thing before you go to the next question. I think to wit, Scoop took the time to share with us. There's always going to be hate. And I think that's the part, like hate don't always see color, man. I hate black on black crimes, but if somebody punched me, I'm gonna punch the shit out of you. So Scoop, I love you giving the context and using a personal story, because I think it's important for people to understand that as good as you try to be as a person, there's always going to be someone who just hates you for all the wrong reasons. And sometimes you just have to defend yourself, but you have to do it with dignity. And to your point, you got to defend yourself from an attack. So I appreciate you sharing the dialogue. Appreciate you sharing the story. Go.
Yeah, don't get into it. I'm not with that Michelle Obama. We always ain't got to go high now. Sometimes we got to go low. Sometimes that shit is necessary.
Yeah, go ahead, Tara. I know you got to keep us moving. Go ahead.
Yeah, we're going to go ahead and close it out with one last question. So much of fellowship is just showing up for people. So again, I want to speak to everyone's perspective from various industries. How do we do that? Which I hope is a simple question for everyone.
I mean, I can start off with this one. Showing up for people is interesting, because Ari and I were having a conversation earlier today where an associate wanted to connect me with somebody who owned a business, right? Entrepreneur coming up. And the thing that we try to stop back and, you know, as you keep climbing the ladder, your days may get busier and busier, right? So it's not about acting brand new. It's just, you only have so much bandwidth and time. But one of the things that we always talk about is stepping back and being like, okay, can I make some time to have a conversation with somebody? You know, even if it's 20 minutes, even if it's 30 minutes, just because people need that. Because the way that I got into this business, or the way somebody else got into this, somebody had to provide some sort of fellowship once you got there, mentorship, whatever it may be. So really, you know, when I look at it, it's like having the presence of mind to mentally give back, right? And you got to create time. And, you know, and it's something that we talk about all the time. We do it, and, you know, and I guess as we get older and more mature, you start to really think about these things even more, because you get to step back and look like, yeah, you know, you don't look at it and say, oh, I'm successful because we're always driving to do more. But also, if you put it in context, I know that I'm much more successful than maybe some other people. So what can I do to help those people become successful too, right?
Good answer, Dre. I think I want to see. I want to just say be present, right? But I think it's tough because you're to someone's question earlier. It's tough to meaningfully be present for everyone the way they need us to be or expect us to be, right? I think that's the most difficult part. It's less about me giving effort, but more about me managing the expectation of the effort that's expected, if that makes sense. And that's something that I'm constantly trying to navigate. And as I said during this whole session, for me, I'm learning, to Scoop's point, I'm learning to understand that we're doing legacy work and we're building, we're creating building blocks that'll last past our lifetime. But while I'm living, I want to make sure that I'm working to solve the entire humanity issue, right? The 500 million issue. Because if we solve for the 500 million, the 40 million was solved within it, right? Once again, this power construct in the crabs in the barrel being a first question is probably interesting, because I think that's the thing that affects us most. We didn't get brought over here on a boat because somebody just hated Black people as an idea. We got brought over here on a boat because people wanted to leverage manpower to get ahead, right? So we got to balance the whole idea of humanity and equality and opportunity, and get off the idea that we all can't. We got to just really meaningfully understand that we can win together. I went where we wasn't, but the answer to your question is, I try to be present, but there has to be an acceptance of presence, the way that we can give it, not the way that it's expected to be received.
Feller, Antoine, did you want to speak to that question?
No, I'm good.
No, I know we at the end, so I won't jump in. It was so many topics that James knows me, and then also my partners. Some of this stuff kind of burns me up a little bit, and I already know I got two long-winded partners, and James is long-winded, and I didn't know Scoop can talk his ass off too, so I just kind of fell back because I could have went off on a few tangents, so I just didn't want to push the time too long.
Listen,
Well,
has challenged me as a moderator. It's been great.
Sorry, Tara. I want to
It's
just
fine.
say it's not directly to the question, but in fellowship, we got to remember, like, with these exchanges that we have, it's not a shirt. So it's not like if we're cold and I take my shirt off my back and I give it to you, I don't have a shirt now. We're exchanging knowledge, right? It's communication. And if I have knowledge, it's my duty, because I know we in a fucked up situation, to play that shit forward and give you some knowledge and try to give you some type of skill. So now we both can attack that hill together. But if I don't tell you how to attack the hill, then we're not going to win. And that's my time.
No, well said. And I think this is fellowship. And I appreciate all of y'all. I think there's 90 some people left here. I appreciate everybody for taking the time to fellowship with us. And I think the thing that I wanted to get across in this session is that none of us are strong alone. Like that doesn't exist. And you got to be able to find strength in yourself, and strength may come from others, and it may not come from the voice of others. To Pell's point, right? It's not an exchange of a shirt. It's more of just an exchange of energy and understanding that there are people who've been on a journey before you. To Scoop's earlier point about the folks who got here before us and having empathy for their journey. It's a lot easier for us today than it was for slaves hundreds of years ago, right? And for us meaningfully now, we got to take this and the tools that we have and leverage those tools to move forward. Like each of us have a responsibility to ourselves to push ourselves forward so we can be an example of what that looks like. And I appreciate all of you for taking a step tonight with us and jumping on Free Game to fellowship with us. Scoop, once again, brother, I appreciate everything that you are. I appreciate everything you've given us, not just tonight, but you exist in a space that you exist with very few minority and Black faces. That in itself is an example of what's possible for us. Ari, Dre, Hutch, Pale, I know what it is. Y'all helped get me here. Without y'all, I wouldn't be who I am today. Tara and team, I appreciate y'all for everything that we do. And Free Game family, this is my therapy. I go to a session every month. I appreciate y'all for helping keep me sane and helping me get my thoughts one way or another into the world. Because without them, I don't know if I had the strength to do what we do every day. So with that, Tara, I'll let you take us home.
I just want to thank everybody again for spending time with us this evening. We did go a little bit over time, but it was a privilege to share space with everyone, listen to these incredible conversations. And Free Game will be back next month. We're here every month. And I look forward to hopefully seeing a lot of you guys then. Have a great night, everybody.